Now, after the Wagner mutiny and a brief unrest in Kremlin, Russia is now dropping charges of armed mutiny against the Wagner mercenary group. Russia's FSB security services said that participants of the armed conflict seized their actions directly aimed at committing the crime. Meanwhile, a plane associated with the Wagner chief, Yevgeny Prigozhin, landed in Belarus. The Contra reports the plane is a Russian-registered Embraer Legacy 600 jet. Flight Radar 24 says the business jet flew to Belarus early on Tuesday. Reports suggest that the identification codes of the aircraft match those of a jet linked by the United States to Autolex Transport, which is linked to Prigozhin by the U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Control. Now, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov had earlier said that Wagner chief Prigozhin will be moving to Belarus as part of a deal to diffuse tensions. Wagner Group chief Yevgeny Prigozhin and all of his fighters vacated Russia's military headquarters in the southern city of Rostov-on-Don on Sunday. The Wagner fighters had captured the city of Rostov hundreds of miles to the south before racing north in their convoy. Transporting tanks and armored trucks and smashing through barricades set up to stop them, Prigozhin had escalated his direct challenge to the Kremlin and pledged to oust the leadership of the defense ministry in Moscow over what he says is their disastrous leadership during the war in Ukraine. Now, for more on this, Sergei Shumleny is joining us live from Berlin. Welcome to the broadcaster. He is a defense expert and director of European Resilience Initiative Center. Now, reports suggest that United States knew about Wagner's mutiny plan in Russia, but I want to ask you, how exactly is that possible? Everything unfolded within 48 hours. So is Washington hinting that this was a long-planned rebellion?
Oh, hello, and thank you for having invited me today. I'm not sure that the whole story is ended, because clearly the sides are not happy with the result. And when the sides are not happy with the result, the story is not over. Neither Vladimir Putin nor Prigozhin have reached their goals. The deal, if they have signed something like a deal, seems to be very weak, because Putin wants to punish Prigozhin. Prigozhin wants to get alive with what he has done. But why did it last only 24 hours? We don't know how much of movement is now on the ground. We know that the Russian troops arrested and executed several supporters of the Wagner group. We have seen several videos of executions. We don't know if Vladimir Putin will somehow purge his army. We have seen yesterday evening some sort of, some sort of security meeting between Putin and his directors of intelligence agencies and Minister of Defense Shoigu, and they looked quite different and happy. They didn't look that as if the story was over.
So I was asking that we are getting reports that the U.S. knew about this mutiny. So I was asking that, do you think that Washington is trying to hint that this was a pre-planned event? Because apparently U.S. knew about this weeks back.
Oh, yes. I'm pretty sure it was pre-planned. It was quite different than spontaneous. You cannot spontaneously move 25,000 people through different regions in Russia. Look, Wagner have taken the biggest Russian southern city, Rostov, the headquarters of Southern Military District, then moved several hundred kilometers to the north. You cannot do such things not pre-planned. And think about the PR campaign that lasted the last weeks. All the videos, all the statements by Prigozhin, it prepared the public for him being insulted by Shoigu at the end. So he knew how he will react.
Right.
He knew he will go to Russia. Of course, it was planned in advance.
Right, now we are getting mixed response from Moscow also. President Vladimir Putin is saying that Wagner did not have any support from the army or the people. But residents in Moscow are also in some sort of way commending Prigozhin for his strong personality. How do you see this duality?
Well, I would say we all watched yesterday the speech of Vladimir Putin, and president behind him, the whole nation state looks different than Vladimir Putin. We have seen during this 24 hours mutiny, we have seen many crowds in different cities of Russia chanting Wagner, Wagner and celebrating Wagner troops. But we have not seen any such gathering chanting Putin, Putin, or we stay behind our president. I think the support for Vladimir Putin is much smaller than Putin wants us to believe. But the real problem is that those people who oppose Vladimir Putin, for example, in Rostov, chanting Wagner, they don't oppose the war. They oppose Putin because Putin is losing the war, and they believe that Yevgeny Prigozhin and his Wagner mercenaries can win the war. They don't want losing military. They want victorious, brutal Wagner force, and that is a problem. They don't want peace. They want more brutality and more success on the battlefield.
Right, now if we can just look forward a little, we know that Prigozhin has now landed in Belarus. How do you see this moving forward? Prigozhin came up with not any hollow kind of a demand. He had very specific demands against the military, in fact, in one of his statements before the mutiny, he even said that Russia will see another president. Now, of course, he has backtracked from it, but how do you see this panning out? Is Prigozhin, the story of Prigozhin, over now that he is in Belarus?
Well, Prigozhin's statements are pretty contradictory all the time. Like, once he says he has nothing against Vladimir Putin, the next day he speaks about a delusional grandpa in Kremlin. The next day he says he is only against Shoigu. Then he says that he will be the next president, and his Telegram channels, who he totally controls, spread the posters with Prigozhin, president of Russia 2024. So we do not need to trust everything what he says. We need to look at context. And the context is that Prigozhin's power is a public power, is of a person who demonstrates himself as a victorious warlord, as a person who can achieve victory. And his brutal force is his Wagner group, his fighters, who are loyal exactly to him, like only to him. It's personal loyalty. It's not loyalty to country, it's loyalty to the leader. So these are two powers he has. While being transferred to Belarus, he loses actually both sources of power. He cannot address the Russian nation because he's not in the battlefield anymore. And he doesn't have his troops with all the supply of weapons, shells, ammunition, gasoline, etc. So right. He actually, being in Belarus, he's been deprived of his source of power. That's why I believe he either needs to return to Russia somehow, or he needs to escape completely, for example, to Africa, where he's well connected and can work for some government. He has good connections there, right. But not staying in Belarus.
All right, Mr. Sergey, we have completely run out of time. Sorry for cutting you short, but thank you for all those insights and thank you for joining us on this broadcast.